first off, where in the world are you located? You said you're Arizona, is it?
Southern Arizona. I'm about 50 miles north of the Mexican border.
Okay. Wow. You're pretty
Yeah,
south. Okay.
I'm out in the boonies.
Yeah.
My wife and I intentionally bought a place in the country, which is interesting when you pick the Rocky Desert. But so it was definitely one of those. We're not in Kansas anymore, Dorothy.
Sure.
Because I spent pretty much my whole life in Wisconsin.
Oh, did you? Okay.
Yeah, yeah. Born and raised in the Milwaukee area, and then for more than 25 years in Green Bay, Wisconsin.
That's
And
not too far from me. Do you know where I've it's a long story, but I've temporarily relocated because I was having a stalking issue. But do you know where Libertyville is?
yeah.
That's where I'm from, actually. Yeah.
Oh, okay, okay, okay. That's awesome. Small world.
Yeah, it really is. How
Yeah,
long have you
yeah.
been
So
there?
we enjoyed Wisconsin. Great place to raise a family. All the Midwest, is a great place to raise a family. My health was failing, and all the doctors said you got to get into a dry climate. And I'm like, BS. That's not going to make a difference. Now I should be a spokesperson for it because it did make a difference. But and yeah, it's a wonderful place if you like the sun.
Yes.
But
It gets
but
quite hot, especially I've heard in the summertime months, like
Yeah,
over
so we're during the monsoon season right now, which is a little harder on me because of the higher humidity, but, yeah, it gets a little warm. Here's my little quick, fun story. Um, uh, First month or 2 moving down here, I left my dress shoes in the car, went to get them, and they had melted into 3 pieces, which has never
wow.
happened in Wisconsin. That type of thing doesn't happen.
No.
And so I took them to the cobbler, and the first thing the cobbler said was, "You must have left them in the car."
So
So,
funny. Wow, yeah, no, I would never even think twice about something like that.
me either, me
That's too
either. The other thing that's a little strange is the sun will damage everything,
mm,
everything. So your cars start to fade, the paint starts to fade. You don't get rusting because we don't have salt and, snow and stuff, but the sun is brutal. Yeah, it's you leave a Rubbermaid outside for a month and it gets so brittle it just falls apart.
wow.
But so anyway, long story short, that's what happened there. My health was failing, so we moved down here, and it continued to fail, but at least it slowed down the process. And my wife, her parents were down here, so we would vacation down here a few years, and I'm like, "Wow, I actually am getting better, so maybe we should do that." So I sold my business back in Green Bay and moved down here about, well, going on 12 years now. So
And so I'm curious because you said you did notice just even from visiting a change in your health. Now that you've been there 12 years, have you had any massive shifts with your health?
well, yes and no. I mean, yes, but I also had many surgeries.
Mm,
I've had 15 surgeries, just 5 in the last year. And that was, you know, one of my darkest times because the pain threshold was I've had 30 years of chronic pain and the threshold was real high, but I was getting so much pain that even if I stood up, my blood pressure would go over 200. I had a
wow.
heart attack because of it. So it was real extreme, and I had pretty much given up. And then luckily found a holistic doctor that ended up finding out some of the problems, and we resolved some of them, not all of them. And now I'm on the road to recovery, so I'm going to be the hero of my new movie. So.
And that's great. Is it nerve related?
Nerve, also, the veins don't work. I can't get oxygenated blood to the limbs,
Mm,
specifically the legs and the feet and the pelvis and everything else. So, and then I've got severe asthma. One of the things I'll talk about in my memoir is I was the 3rd worst asthmatic. I was spent 2 years in a research facility out in Denver, Colorado, and had all of that. And then so yeah, lots going on, a lot of other issues that I won't bore you with, but always had some physical ailments, and that was part of the reason for the spiritual awakening. I realized that I couldn't live in that parasympathetic nerve system when you're in fight or flight. You're constantly running in fear, doubt, guilt, lack, all those negative frequencies, and I snapped out of it luckily and took it extremely serious. And my mind was adept to make those changes based on my childhood traumas and all the other stuff. And all of a sudden, I found myself awakened and manifesting and doing all the things that people talk about. And I'm like, holy crap, this is real. And
Right.
so I started my spiritual coaching business, and that's been very good. And yeah, I just recently I'm leaving my corporate job August 3rd at Microsoft, and so yeah, my life is moving forward.
Wow. I mean, that's a lot, right? Especially the pain threshold, dealing with physical pain as
But, you
part of
know, here, let me interject because I know, yeah, there's some sympathy and empathy there. Let me say what I found out about that because it's really enlightening. It's a blessing, and here's why. I spent a lot of time in the hospitals and in oxygen tents and away from people, and so I started going into my head, and I daydreamed, and I made a life for myself, and I was very analytical, and I'd analyze other people's lives and pretend to be them, and blah 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 blah. The pain
Mhm.
brings me to the present.
Yeah. You can't almost you really can't avoid it. Right?
And
Mhm.
so that's what God did. He said, "Well, you know what? You're gonna go through life in this fantasy world, and I'm going to drag you out kicking and screaming."
Mhm.
And he did, and I was, and I did, and then I realized, "Oh, there is something here. Okay, I get this now." So,
Mhm.
yeah.
Yeah, that resistant energy. It can be brutal.
Yes, I was very stubborn for a long time. Yes, very
Yeah, no, I
stubborn.
understand that fully.
Yeah,
I can relate in certain ways. So tell me a little bit about the corporate alchemist. Like I said, I really love your contributions to the group
sure.
and the wisdom that you share. So what are you doing with the coaching practice? Are you working specifically within larger corporations? Are you working one-on-one with individuals?
So I'm working on my second book. It's called Alchemized, and it's teaching people in the corporate world how to live spiritually in spite of feeding the monster and the demons of corporate. But to answer your question, yes, corporate, but also I love to talk to people with severe trauma because I can relate between my physical and my childhood, because the childhood was probably just as bad, being stabbed by my mother and my father making me feel less than and all this stuff. Um, and I can really help, and I realized very quickly that people don't want to just be talked to; they want somebody that they can relate to. As a
Mhm.
matter of fact, the only thing that's pushed back against that trauma help is when I let people know what I've been through. They're like, "Oh shit, I can't compete with that." So, so I have a tendency to be a little tight-lipped about some of it. But yeah, because I went through so much and because I'm on the other side, and because my sister's been a therapist for 40 years, I have a special place in my heart for severe trauma as well. But the corporate alchemy was where my calling was, if you will. But I really enjoy the trauma side.
Yeah, I can appreciate both aspects of that, including the severity. Again, I apologize. I don't want you to get into all of it right now that I haven't had a chance to read
Yeah, no, no, no. And
part, but I
remember, there's no insistence on the outcome, so you don't have to apologize a bit. I don't care if you don't read it, and that's no
no,
offense. I
I
have
absolutely
no insistence on anything. I roll with everything. I'm like, the bird when the nest gets blown off the tree. Well, I'm not gonna cry about it. I'm just gonna build another nest.
it is
So,
what it is, right? No, I
yeah.
understand. But I'll say too, I do relate to when it comes to the severity of the experiences.
Sure.
Sometimes when we give it all at once, it's a bit much for somebody to receive where they just feel like, whoa. And even if they've gone through their own, they just feel like, whoa, that's just so much. And how is it even possible that you are of the mindset and the
Yeah.
physical capabilities that you are today after you've been through those things? And so it's interesting. I think it's interesting how you mentioned that it was a gift in a way, because isn't that strange how it works that sometimes the suffering is what brings us to the clarity.
Mm.
We have
That's
to
why
go.
they call it transcendence through suffering, right? I mean, that's exactly why.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, there's a whole lot. I very much resonate with the alchemy aspect as well. That's kind of the piece when I mentioned as far as the somatics is really around that somatic alchemy, um, as well as the energetics. And so I very much am curious about from a corporate side, what you're doing. I came from a professional background as well of
Oh, okay.
close to a little over a decade within HR and recruiting,
Oh,
actually
wow. Okay.
a full span of HR, some OD, talent management, recruiting, largely within the technology space as well, actually. So
Oh,
large
wow.
software companies as well as mid-size, high growth, which was kind of the sweet spot. I really enjoy
Yeah,
helping build instead of just kind of being
sure.
a in the wheel. And I still do a bit of that as well, actually.
Okay.
But of course, part of my passion is taking, like, I went from the transition of HR recruiting into a little bit of career coaching. Still find that people reach out to me for that, but it's not my main focus. And then
Sure.
into bringing that personal aspect, similar to what you are sharing that you do, right?
Yeah,
Of
yeah.
coaching elements of taking the neuroscience, the somatics, the energetics, and how we move through that so it no longer inhibits us and we can live in greater alignment, right? And it sounds like both you and I have some significant experience of what it feels to live like in contrast as well, which is can teach us quite a
Yeah.
bit.
Well,
Yeah.
and, yeah, I don't know about you, but I also found out that, not all of my problems, but certainly a lot of my chronic pain is related to that somatic, right? Your
Right.
fascia is tighter than a drum because you're living in this fight or flight, and, so it's all connected. I mean,
Oh,
and
absolutely.
that's the aha moment. You're like, "Holy crap, this I didn't know," "Nobody taught me, nobody told me," and furthermore, I was an analytical mind with a science background and math background, so I didn't I'm like, "Ah, BS, don't talk to me about spiritual crap," and then, God just hit me over the head with a 20-ton brick, and then I said, "Oh, okay, I guess I'm paying attention now."
Right. And isn't it it's you, but that's the beauty too, I think, when we think about the inverse, there's always an inverse of everything, right?
Yin
And
and yang, right,
right.
yeah.
And when we think about the inverse, if, to your point, right, if physical pain can be a manifestation of what's going on with you internally,
Right,
mentally, emotionally, spiritually, then we can also influence the outcome on the reverse when
exactly.
we align the mental, emotional, spiritual aspects internally, right? Then that then presents differently externally and in our experience.
Absolutely.
Always mean
Mhm.
it's a full fix, but I'll tell you, I actually have had a few beautiful opportunities to speak with some individuals who were undergoing cancer and used the basically the power of manifestation to heal themselves. I mean,
Sure,
of course, it wasn't the only thing they did. They did, some treatment as well, but
yeah.
largely attributed the reproduction of the healthy cell distribution
Mhm, mhm.
to the manifestation. So it's
Yep.
incredible what our minds and our
Oh,
bodies
yeah.
do.
Well, it's tied into we poo-poo the idea when we hear about, the placebo effect, for example.
Mhm.
Well, that those copper bracelets are just placebo, or, "Oh, that magnetic is just placebo." Placebo, hello, break it down. Your mind is changing for you. So when you tap into that on a higher level, it becomes so much more than just your placebo effect.
Exactly. It's so empowering. And in fact, again, I'll share more at some point of my personal story. I don't want to get into a detail about it, but I basically made the choice consciously after a significant amount of, destruction, right, as well. But I made the choice consciously to basically, as I like to describe it, like knock the house down to the studs and rebuild it
Yeah.
consciously. So
Mhm.
that was also in the neuro programming, right? And the rewiring of that. And so it is quite incredible. I mean, just even the individuals and both, and it shows physically too, which is interesting. I mean, obviously there's been lifestyle changes, but the individuals that knew me, say like 7 to 10 years ago, would probably not even think I was the same person, both
Sure.
physically as well as mentally, like just all of that work that, and so it's just really incredible and empowering. And that's why I love this aspect of,
Yeah.
because
I think
it
that's
gives
the
that
comment that I
there.
get most often is, "You're not the same person. I said, "I understand. I know that. I mean, I created a different reality. I
Exactly.
am not surrounded by negativity anymore. I don't see it at all. It's not part of my psyche. It's not part of my reality. And furthermore, I've let go of everything. I've accepted it. I've forgiven. I'm coming from a place of love in my heart all the time. And so when you can do that and
Yes.
and you don't get caught up in the game
Mhm.
and you see it for what it is, and you're that bird, when a nest gets blown down, you just move on. It's huge. And
Mhm.
people can talk about it all day long, and I know a lot of spiritual people that are on different levels, and they've been working at it for 15 years, and they're great, good for you. But there's always something, whether it's an ego or a fear or, something that's holding them back from moving forward. And I'm not saying I'm there. If I was there, I'd be dead, and I've already been dead a few times. So but I am so much further along that I can see it, and I'm the observer of
Right.
my thoughts. I'm the observer of this. So it's so empowering, and I wish, and I'm sure you feel the same way, that you could give somebody that magic pill. You could just say, "Take it,"
Right.
because this will help you. But it's that whole adage, you can't make that horse drink once you bring it to water. Even if it's your favorite horse, you can't make it drink. So,
Right. Well, and and our souls awaken when they're ready, right? Just like both on the flip side of like how we've discussed. I know you mentioned this morning the synchronicity and the messages and the timing of the messages. It's also in the soul's ability and readiness to receive those messages. Like our souls decide when that time arrives,
absolutely.
right? And it's not
Yeah.
up to anybody else really. But what's beautiful is that we can create more of a container to allow for that
Safe
through the
space, yeah.
conversations
Mhm.
that we have,
Yeah.
right? Through what we share of our own experiences, where people start to broaden their perspective and then they start to take what resonates, right? And kind of like what I've said before, like you take what you need, leave the rest, right? And
Not
and it goes from there. And so it is, I
That's
agree
why
that.
I like spiritual coaching. I'm sure you feel the same way because you can touch people and they'll hear the teacher from Peanuts, "Wah, wah, wah," most of the time, but then one thing will snap in, "Oh, my yeah, that resonates with okay, good." So it's that one thing at a time. It's baby steps. That's my famous saying is baby steps. And I agree with you 100%, and it's another thing that I preach all the time is you are exactly where you need to be.
Yeah.
You're not ahead, you're not behind. It's all programmed, it's all ready to go. You signed the contract before you got here. It's called your soul's blueprint path. Look it up. I mean, it's all there. And that's why to me, all religions point to the same thing: peace, love, unity, right? It's some of them get skewed and the dogmas get in the way and all that crap. But as long as you can live on that path and observe what you're doing, observe how you react, you will find the path.
Yes, there's a lot of that's a very deep, detailed discussion, and I'd be open to that with you at some point if you'd like. But I find that there are a lot more commonalities amongst the religious belief systems
Oh,
than we
sure.
want to embrace at times. There's a
Yeah,
lot of that division based upon semantics and based upon the ways in which the articulation of the values and beliefs come through, right?
exactly.
So
Yeah.
I very much appreciate that perspective. And I think as we can continue to recognize that as a society, even in small pods, and then it grows and grows,
Hmm.
it gives us a higher level of tolerance and acceptance
Hmm.
for our fellow man, woman, whatever, right? Kind of universally. And that allows us to have that much more unconditional love and compassion that we can share instead of
100%. Yeah,
sitting screaming at
100%. There's
ourselves.
no wrong way. If you're focused on peace and love, there is no wrong way. It gets you to the same source. We are all praying to the same God. I
Right.
mean, that's the problem. People don't understand that because the culture creates the dogma, and the dogma is programming, and it's like, step out of
Right.
it, but I just wish I could teach people that, but it is what it is, and as long as it gets you there, that's fine.
Right. And and it's human nature too. Like there's a part of me that's recognized too. Like it's human nature to cling to concepts,
Sure.
to use constructs and
Mhm.
semantics and
Symbolism.
linguistics to understand concepts. Like I very much appreciate and understand that. And there was a moment where I humbly, recognized too, like there was a part of me that was being a little judgmental, even though I don't consider myself super judgmental, but judgmental of like, why are these people going to church and acting like they're so religious and then they're acting like assholes all week long? Like, what's happening here? And then I literally had to sit with myself and say, Dana, oh my gosh, are you expecting that everyone that goes to church is a saint? Because that's not really an appropriate expectation. Maybe they're going there to learn. Like, hello.
Right. Well, the other thing, it's funny because I had the exact same feeling. I'm sure all of us spiritual people do. The only thing that I did differently in my situation, I'm like, be careful. The ego is now wearing the spiritual robe, Gary. You need to
Exactly.
relax, you know? So, yeah,
Exactly. I know I've heard some people reference that as well. Like, be careful of the spiritual ego, right? And it's interesting because that's the piece of it where there is a stage, and I've experienced it in glimpses myself, but also it, specifically like witnessing somebody else who's on their path, and where there comes a point in time where the differentiation is so minimal, and
mhm,
because the acceptance is so high too.
sure.
So when I've seen some of these, depending on again which dogma you relate to, but like a guru, right, or a master, and I've seen some of them just they don't have to it's just so accepting that they don't articulate a lot. And it's
Sure.
interesting. I'll tell you, in my life, I remember as a young child, I was very grateful that I had the opportunity to meet my great grandmother. She was just such a wise woman and like just so energetic, like such a go getter for her time. I mean, she grew up in the Great Depression, all the things, right? But I mean,
Yeah,
she was
yeah.
not the standard woman back then. Like she was quite independent too,
Awesome.
very interesting. She rode her, three-wheeled tricycle basically till the day she died peacefully in her sleep, no health issues. I'm like, that's the way I want to go, right? Like
Yeah,
live a
right, right.
life with no health
Exactly.
issues. But one thing I'll say is that I recognize about her, and I catch myself in this way sometimes too. I check myself because one thing she would do is she had so much to share, but she wouldn't necessarily go out there and broadcast it all the time. But if
Sure.
you approached her, my goodness, you got all types of wisdom. And then
Yeah.
I remember thinking too, when I said, oh, I'd like to be like her. Well, this version of Dana is like, interesting. You don't get wisdom just by posting life. So be careful what you wish for, right?
Exactly,
but
exactly. Yeah.
but at the same time, it's I think about that and I think like there's times where we can offer our input and it's important,
Yep,
and it's important for us to use our voice and to share our stories as part of how we grow and evolve together. And
yep,
then there's times where it's really important for us to just hold that space and let people come to us and share what they want to when they're ready to, and to have a safe container for that. That's one thing in the
yes,
community to create a little bit more is the verbal interaction too. I don't have that going right at the moment, but just so that
mhm,
that way, if we're having a conversation like you and I are today, like there could be more individuals participating, and then again, people are going to get out of it what they need at that time, and they're going to contribute other aspects too that may spark another perspective or ignite some creativity. I've been witnessing that in some other groups, which is just so beautiful, where just the conversations and then what
Yeah.
comes of it, what culminates from that. It's really beautiful when we start to be more open-hearted like that and
Yeah.
present with one another. So I'd love to cultivate more of that as well. Are you doing, when you do corporate, are you doing larger sessions? Or are you doing more one-on-one?
Both.
Both?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and this goes back to the no insistence on the outcome. Somebody told me this really early on, and it really resonated with me because my whole life, just like most of us, but me specifically, I tried to control every outcome, right? Everything had to be analyzed, everything had to be managed, and so my embracing the exact opposite is kind of my core belief.
Sure.
So I just put the information out there. Same thing with the school communities. A lot of people ask me, yeah, you should create a community. I don't want to create a community right now. I want the engagement. I want to help other people. I want to help you. And so that feeds my soul. That feeds my heart space. If I'm helping somebody with no insistence on the outcome, well, that's exactly what I wanna do. And
Right.
so that kinda goes both ways. It goes all which ways. It goes to the corporate world. It goes to, my memoir that I just finally got on Amazon. It goes to everything. Raising my daughter, all of this stuff is super easy now because I don't have anything
No
pre-planned or
attachment. Right. No attachment
yeah.
to it. Yeah. And I mean, that's actually, I've seen it. I'm still practicing this,
Yeah.
but I've seen some really beautiful culminations that come out of that once we really
Oh,
fully
yeah.
engage. Once
That's where
we
the magic happens. That's exactly where the magic happens, and
exactly. Yes,
yeah.
exactly. We're and I would love to get on more of a detailed discussion about detachment. I
Sure.
may put something about it as
Yeah.
well, because that can get misinterpreted. So some people, I have actually heard from individuals who are kind of from academia, more sort of background, where they tend to, I don't want to group them all together, but where I've heard some feedback where they tend to think of it more so as disassociation, which is an entirely different um, situation, right? When you're
Yeah,
completely
right.
disconnected from reality. Detachment is not, detachment is, like you said, it's releasing the outcome. It's just simply um, you know, having a specific intent with a positive charge behind it, and
Mhm.
then releasing the outcome, not being so fixated on
That's right.
this is going to, how this is
That's
going
right.
to inspire, or how is this going to benefit me, but more so, how is
Mhm.
it going to benefit others? So it's
Yeah,
interesting.
that's exactly right, and I ran into this not too long ago, it was probably a week ago, and, I talked to a client and I said because they were disappointed that they gave money and the money didn't go where it was supposed to go, I said, "No, no, no, you're mistaken. You give the money freely from your heart.
Mm,
After that, after it leaves your hands, it doesn't matter where it goes.
right.
That's not for you to worry about. It has nothing to do with you. 0 to do
Mm,
with you anymore. So, you put it out with the best intentions, with that heart space, with that energy attached to it. That's all. And
right.
so, and so, yes, detachment is a slippery slope, right? You don't wanna, uh, sit in a corner and be detached from life. You wanna move forward, and you want your most, authentic self with motivation to move forward. But you don't want to say, "Okay, well, I'm gonna put this book out here now, and it's gonna be a bestseller, and if it's not, then I'm disappointed." No, 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 there is no attachment. And so that's kinda where, yes, it's absolutely you've gotta distinguish between the 2 because some people take it the wrong way, especially depending on their past traumas.
Right. And I really am leaning into that. Like, I really connect to I've not previously put it this way, but I really connect to the combination of the intent behind the action as
Sure.
well.
Sure.
because when you think about that, like the example that you just gave, right? About, oh, like putting it out there because you want it to be a bestseller, like that's an ego attachment. And
Absolutely.
that's the driving force behind it, if that were to be the case, versus what is it that you're hoping to achieve by sharing this story? Are you hoping to touch hearts? Are you hoping to, that some
Exactly.
people receive this that can benefit from hearing this story? Maybe they've had some
E-
similar experiences. Very
Exactly.
different intent, right? Very, very different intent. And I think that sometimes that's a big piece of it too, is not just our ability to release, but our ability to decipher, where is this being spirit driven or ego driven activity, right? And I think
Agreed.
that has a huge, huge impact too. Um, so when you, if you were to pinpoint in your life where you made the most significant shift, would you say it was when you moved to Arizona? Would you say that that was the most significant shift for you, from moving out of more of that denser analytical framework into more of an open-minded spiritual belief system?
No, no, it was well into my stay in Arizona. Like I said, it got very dark, for, soon after I moved here. I moved here because it was starting to get dark. It got a little bit better, and so I had high hopes that it was gonna continue to get better, and it got worse. And then I started to just lose faith and get into a real dark space, and then all the medical started happening around the pain and the heart attack and the blood pressure and everything else, and then I just gave up. I'm like, "Okay, well, I'm done." I'm ready to die anyway. I lost a whole bunch of weight. I was down to 104 pounds.
Wow.
I could only eat 7 ingredients, including salt and pepper, so 5 ingredients, only water for 3 years. It was like I was in a concentration camp with chronic pain and lung problems. My oxygen saturation was below 90% and often in 85% range where the hospital wanted to admit me. I can just go on and on and on. So when I got to that point and I was convinced I was dying, um, I told my wife, I said, I'm probably going to go out in the hot tub and just take a big drink of water. And I said, "I just want you to know if this happens that there's nothing I can talk to somebody that would help. I'm very analytical. I've spent a lot of time, with people like that, with my sister. I knew it wasn't a depression that I could get out of. It was like my body's failing, so I'm just not willing to suffer anymore."
Mhm.
And one night, I said to God, I said, "It's been a long road. You've seen it all happen, and you know my heart. I need you now, and if you're not here, then you know what's gonna happen. And I'm not blaming you, but I'm going to do it. This is just a fact. This is the way it's gonna work. And so if you are real, I need proof. You know me. I'm an analytical guy. I have to have it."
Mhm.
And in that moment, I got a warm embrace, and I immediately lost the sadness. I flashed back to seeing the tree of life when I was clinically dead and had that out of body experience. And from that moment forward, I mean, literally hours, all I could think about was trees and the tree of life and how my heart had changed. I felt like the Grinch, it had grown, and my path was divinely protected. And from that point forward, it's never it's never wavered. It's just been so empowering. My wife's like, "You're obsessed. And it's between obsession and you're delusional." And I said, "Yeah, isn't that great?"
It's
Because
beautiful.
well, and I often tell people because you hear that word delusional in the spirit, realms a lot, and I said, "I would rather be delusional any day of the week than living how I was living, in that fear and doubt and guilt." And and so when I did that and I let go, that's when everything changed.
Yeah, when you let go of the grip. Yeah.
I literally, that adage where they say, "Monkey off your back."
Mm-hmm.
I felt like I was 100 pounds lighter. I just felt like, oh, it's not a matter of not caring. It's a matter of Jesus take the wheel type of thing, right?
Right.
I wasn't going to be involved in this anymore. I wasn't going to be involved. I still to this day don't watch any news or read papers or anything because that's not my reality. My reality is here. I'm talking to Dana. That's my reality. So I choose not to have the negative frequencies in my life. I choose to not look at something as a bad thing. I look at it as a difficult thing that is teaching me a lesson. I choose these things.
Yes.
And that's really, I think, what snaps you out of it. And some people hit rock bottom and you hear that all the time, reborn Christian or whatever, label you want to put on it, and I think it does take that suffering, that transcendence of suffering. And some people are just more durable like me. I dealt with it for 50 plus years and then finally said, enough's enough.
Yeah. I like how you mentioned that about, the selectivity of what you give your attention to and the frequencies as well. It's interesting. We really do have such a large capacity to curate our lives. And
Sure.
sometimes we forget that. It's like when people are in that, the tunnel vision and going through the motions. And I don't say that with judgment. I've lived that way too.
Sure.
And, where you just think that you have to live within a certain construct, that there are certain behaviors or lifestyles or activities that you need to subscribe to, when really it's always our choice. And
Yeah.
if it isn't feeling like it's in alignment, and it's adding, it's a negative pollutant of some sort, then what
Sure.
do? We remove it. Just like a diet, if we're eating something that's not good for our body, we remove it, right? we
Yeah.
we select that which is going to give us the highest experience. And specifically, as you mentioned with the news, like, I'm not into that either. Like, there's so many reasons why, but I do feel like it's important to be informed. So I occasionally will check, online or something like that. But to religiously watch it every single day, no, thank you.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. I think too, it goes back to the traumas, and I'm a broken record when it comes to talking about trauma because it's not just your childhood trauma. It's not just your generational trauma. It's everyday cultural trauma. It's cultural programming. And
Yes.
so, and until you realize that, until you can disconnect from that and realize what's happening,
Hmm.
you're going to be stuck even 1%. And 1%, I'm sorry, is not good enough for me. I want to disconnect. Now, I can now watch and hear stories, and my neighbor talks about things, and I'm like, oh, I used to be like, I can't, I got to have positive. Because when I was going through this, I was like, I can only do
Extra
positive right now.
sensitive as
Yeah,
well.
yeah.
Right.
Now I can hold it. Now I can relate. Now I'm donating to charities and doing all these things, but before, I didn't even wanna think about it because I don't like the idea of people suffering because 'cause I've suffered my whole life, and so when I see people suffering either emotionally or physically, I have a strong reaction.
Yeah, I definitely can relate to that. And I do think too, like, our tolerance, our capacity expands as well. So there's that period of time when we are going through our own shift where, we
Sure.
contract and then we start to expand, and then our tolerance for what we can allow into our field and not absorb changes as well.
Exactly. That's
Um,
right.
and I mean, that's a big piece of it, right? So, like, you specifically mentioned the observer aspect, and we really have to become that observer before we become the creator,
That's right.
because otherwise we're just taking
Yeah,
in all this information and absorbing all these things around us instead of actually acknowledging them for what they
yeah,
are. And that can be
yeah,
a huge issue. And I speak from personal experience. It can be a huge issue, specifically if you're an empath too, because you're just constantly, in touch with
mm,
everything around you and absorbing it
yeah,
till
yeah,
you learn that aspect of the differentiation and being able to become the observer, to detach, to recognize, to be able to still,
yeah,
beautiful because you can still tune in deeply,
Yeah.
but you also know how to pull back and not be one with that is not in alignment with you at that
Yeah,
moment.
and you hit the nail on the head because I resonate deeply, and here's why. One of the traumas was my mother was bipolar, and I didn't know what I was getting, and she went to extremes, like I said, stabbing me and this, that, and the other thing. So I had to be an empath. I had to find out, okay, how does her face look? What does she look like? What she's doing? How is she holding her shoulder? I had to read everybody, and
Mhm.
so now it's a superpower.
Exactly.
Now when I talk to people, I'm like, "Oh, you're no, no, no." And they're like, "Damn it, how do you know?" I'm like, "'Cause I know," and, but you're absolutely right, especially when it comes to people that you care about, you have to protect your own energy, and I just visualize it as an aurora, because I've seen, that around people, especially pregnant women, I see their aura,
Mhm.
and, I look at it as my force field, or whatever you wanna call it, is now impervious to you, but it's open for you to receive mine. And
Oh,
so, when you can picture that and you can focus on it, and if you start to notice your hands clenching or your shoulders, right? "Oh, okay. Okay, breathe into it. Yeah, what's triggering? Okay, this is a childhood thing. Okay, got it. Now I can move forward." So once you recognize what's happening in the body, so as you said, somatic, that's a big thing because the body always tells you.
yes, it does.
Your mind is too busy going through its 60,000 things it does every minute. Your body will say, "No, no, no. I'm reacting to this, and here's why."
Exactly. Right. 100%. Being able to start to acknowledge and like really tune into the body signals is so empowering because it's beyond what our mind is trying to tell us or decipher or analyze. It's so automatic to the
Yep.
extent that I was having this conversation with somebody just the other day that even we can start as we go through this, like, yes, we can notice areas in the body where we have constriction or where we have
Mhm.
blocks and things like this. But beyond that, just taking it to the nervous system itself, when
Mhm.
we feel open and we feel a sense of calm, we sense of peace and presence with somebody else, that's our
Mhm.
nervous system's
Yeah,
response telling us this person is safe and vice versa, right? It's really almost
absolutely.
that easy. But what gets complicated is when you say, like, exactly having past traumas where the nervous system is wired to react a certain way. It's a matter of kind of reframing that so that the nervous system
Mhm.
knows, is this just a reaction to a past pattern or
Mhm.
is this a true survival need right now? Uh,
Exactly.
but once we are fully dialed in, then it becomes again another piece of that superpower where we can
Yep.
just automatically know, yes, I do the facial recognition things, all the body language, all the things too. But like
Yep.
even beyond that, where we can just sense in our body, how
Oh,
is my
yeah.
body responding? Like, am I calm?
Yeah.
And do I feel,
Yep.
like I'm on edge? Do I feel like I am expansive or like I am contracting? And why? And we don't
Yeah.
have to judge it either. Like I think you made a very, very beautiful point there. It's really more about noticing than about judging or clinging to
Mhm.
that signal. So
Yep.
say for example, there may be somebody who most times I feel pretty comfortable around, but maybe one interaction something's going awry and my body is signaling and I can tune in. What's going on here? Is it the way that their energy is coming through? Are they distracted? Am I distracted? Am I carrying something else that is
Right.
equation? And so it starts to give us so much information that we can use to our benefit. Because, and I really want to say that because I recently had that experience with a particular individual, and old trauma self would have been like, throw that out the window. Like, no way am I interacting with that energy
Yeah,
again, right?
yeah, yeah.
Because it would be like that protection mechanism.
Yep.
But there's that aspect of noticing, wait a minute, I've had all these various experiences with this individual, these interactions. That hasn't been my energetic response
Mhm.
every time. So, what
Mhm.
was different this time?
Right.
right? And it does, it's interesting. I think I love how you mentioned too, because I sometimes I say like I feel like it's like CIA level training in a
Yeah,
way.
right.
You know, it's like you
Exactly.
can see like the eyes, the smile, the facial
Yeah,
expression, the body
yeah,
language, the like the nervousness, you know, it's and it's terrible when you're living in a state of hypervigilance, which is where it comes from. But once you
that's
get
right.
around that, then it becomes, yes, you're right, exactly a superpower, right? Where
Yeah.
it's like you could walk through an airport. And I mean, actually, quite frankly, I've walked through the the county judicial system, and I can tell almost pretty quickly. Like I could put money on which ones are crooked and
Yeah,
which ones. Probably could
exactly.
literally put money on it.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. I mean, it's funny, my final test or my boss battle was, meeting up with my mother, not too far in the recent past here after many, many, many problems, and I told myself, "Okay, you're ready." And it was amazing how quickly I had to just like, "Oh, okay, I gotta go outside for a second, I'll be right back." And I had to settle in and say, "Gary, this is a past thing. That has nothing to do with you now." And so we're never the point is we're never free from it completely. If we were, we would have moved on to 5D or whatever, and we'd be gone. But when you can be the observer all the time and watch what you're doing and watch how you're reacting, it becomes a beautiful place because it teaches you so much.
Yes, you make such a great point about that, and kudos to you because that's a lot of bravery after going through that type of a trauma and that extreme physical violence too to approach that. But it is interesting, you know, and to be able to reflect on your own soul growth in that moment, to be able to say, I'm not in that time frame. I'm not that child. I've healed that part of me. I'm safe now. I'm my own
Mhm.
protector. As I mentioned to somebody the other day, like I said, the integration for me was becoming my own provider, protector, and best friend, right? Like
There you go.
all one. And so then we can approach it from a different perspective because we're not approaching it from that same sense that we had during that phase or that chapter or that
Exactly.
frame of life. And but it's a kudos to you because there's some people that I haven't quite gotten there with. Like I've forgiven
Yeah.
it from afar,
Yeah,
but
yeah, yeah.
not so
What
much that.
if you don't mind me saying, and this goes for anybody you wanna meet, what really helped me is when I started looking at every single person, whether I was engaged with them or not, as a broken child, because we're all broken.
Yes, I
And
agree.
so when you can look at them at that 5-year-old or that 4-year-old and you're like, "Oh, I wish I could help you so much." It doesn't matter if they're trying to piss you off or what they're trying to do. You're like, "Aw." I mean, it's not a, "Oh, I'm gonna say that to somebody to make them triggered more." It's more, I'm really feeling it from my heart space. I really wanna help you because I see how much hell you're living in right now. And so when I could open up my heart and recognize that and really live it, that's when things change.
Yeah,
That's when all of
that's
the love just started oozing out?
that's the compassion. And I feel that too, because with a sense of humility, we can recognize there were times in our lives, like we laughed about a little bit earlier, where we were living in contrast. So
Yeah,
understanding that from a human perspective and understanding that I've used the term that most people only operate from their current level of awareness. And that, so being able to understand and recognize it like that, and also recognize is somebody acting just out of their wounding. And that doesn't mean that, hey, they have a free pass and that they can
yeah.
behave however they want, right? Like,
No,
because
no,
we
no.
have
Right.
boundaries and expectations for ourselves, but it does give us a level of additional compassion to understand that they're simply living in a trapped state themselves.
Yeah,
And
they don't know what to do. They have no idea. Nobody's taught them. So even
right,
if it's and here's the hard thing, right? Because you said, some people you haven't gotten completely over. Those people you need to focus more on that because they're the most broken, right? Just because it was you personally that they hurt doesn't mean that they're less broken. And it doesn't mean that they're smarter. They're not smarter because they would have fixed it already if they were smarter. Or I shouldn't say smarter. That's probably the wrong way to, but you know what I mean? It's a knowing. And so understanding that and understanding that my mother was a very broken individual and her parents treated her like dog poo, I recognized, hey, it this is something that she just did. She didn't mean anything by it one way or the other. It was her negative self, her devil, whatever you want to label it, and then let it go because again it's a chapter in a book that you read or a movie that you watched. Why are we picking up the book or why are we watching the movie? It has zero to do with you now
Right.
because now is only playing in your head, so why
So
pay attention to it?
just I love that input, and I take that to heart, just as a clarification. For me, I find with the forgiveness, there's some that I'm still going through directly, so it's a little bit complicated,
No, I'm
but
sure.
I think of it like a ball of yarn sometimes when the trauma or the pain is so deep where we have to unravel a little bit at a time. We keep doing that. And that has worked very well for me. Where I was saying like clear differentiation and a respect for you is the ability to, formulate any interaction or rapport with somebody who has harmed you in that way. Because we can forgive without, like we can forgive without reinvesting into the relationship.
No,
And so
absolutely.
it depends on where we are and what the circumstances are. And
Hmm.
for me personally, what I have noticed is that there are some individuals who they just continue that same destructive like behavior. They want to violate the boundaries. And at that
Yep.
point, you have to say, like, I need to preserve my own self
Yep.
care, love, so I can't engage in this any further.
No,
But
no,
that doesn't come from a place of
agreed.
a unforgiveness or
No, 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 for sure.
angst, right? Like we're still letting go of it, but it's in a different way.
Yeah.
So I was just saying I very much admire your bravery and capacity to have an interaction with her, knowing that you're not reliving that experience. That was a
Mhm.
former experience. You're living in the now, to your
Mhm.
point, right? And that you can recognize that the way in which she behaved was just a generational trauma that was birthed, before she came to life, right? That she continued to carry on. And
Yeah.
how fortunate for those of us who are able to stop those patterns, right? It's
Yeah,
not
and
easy
by the
for
way, just to make you feel better, and I wasn't insinuating, that we need to hang out with those people and be their besties, because 'cause I'm not my mother's bestie, and I won't be. I'm more of a spiritual coach at this time, and I give
right,
her a great deal of respect for raising 3 children, on a Walmart income, and I was disabled and all this other stuff. But that's where it stops, right? I'm not gonna be her loving son, I'm not gonna because she's still, in my eyes, a very distorted, confused person, and to your point, and this is where I come from when I bring this up, I don't have the energy because I know she's locked in and she can't see. And
right,
so it's like I said before, you can bring the horse to water. Well, I'm not gonna
exactly.
sit there with the horse 5 days out of the week and hope and pray that it drinks. No, I need to move on as well, so.
Exactly. I think that's a great way of kind of tying it together where it's the acceptance of where somebody is right now and their
Mhm.
capacity and
Yeah,
how that does or doesn't fit within our current frame of reality
100%,
we are
100%,
experiencing and want to experience. Um,
100%.
and it's interesting. I'd love to delve maybe in a different conversation a little bit more into the forgiveness topic because one of the things for me that I've recognized is that when we think energetics, we transform that to an energetic perspective, you're holding a negative charge. So you're still very much attached to that, right?
Sure.
And you're able to release that through the forgiveness within your heart, not
Mhm.
the permissiveness. I always say that out loud very clearly because those of us who have experienced some extreme things, we may feel like, well, we were wronged and this wasn't right, and it's not to say
Yep.
like it excuses the behavior. It's not permissive, but it's recognizing their capacity, where they are, why it happened, forgiving what happened for our own hearts. And when we can't always do that fully consciously, there are great other avenues for us to do it, right? Like, I
Oh, yeah.
mean, depends on, what one wants to believe. I mean, I have a kind of a background, not like fully subscribed, but I have a background in Christian roots, right? So there's that aspect. But I'll tell you too, like I love the Ho'oponopono prayer too. Like when
Yeah.
you get there fully consciously, like just to release that and to recognize and honor that we're all human beings and we make
Yeah.
mistakes. We're only operating at the best that we can at this point in our lives. And some people, they're trapped, and
Yeah.
we can send them love and
Yeah.
compassion, but
Yeah.
we cannot walk their path for them, just like
That's right.
nobody did that for us, right? There were
Yeah.
in our lives where maybe others like you and I, we like there might have been people observing us thinking, gosh, I wish they'd figure it out. Right?
Yes. Well, my sister was one of them. Because she found the enlightenment very young age. She at about 16 years old, and I would always pick on her and say, "Oh, you love people too much, and you got to take care of yourself." But I was lost, and she's like, "Uh huh, uh-huh." And so she knew that I couldn't hear it at that time, so yes, I am very much aware I was in that boat as well, and that's why I speak so adamantly about it, because now I'm like, snap out of it, and that's been my most difficult thing that I've had to do personally, is not be so, not aggressive, but, assertive aggressive when it comes to, like, "Hey, let me just show you." Well, what worked for me doesn't work for you, and
That's
so and you're in a different spot, and I need to relax, and I just need to give them a safe space. That's been my biggest difficulty, is like, "No, no, you don't understand. I have the secret sauce. I'll give it to you." And you just can't do that. You can't do that.
right. Well, I mean, I had this conversation with somebody the other day, like when it comes to coaching or the healing communities, right? When like that approach can have additional negative reactions to,
Absolutely.
and it's maybe born out of a good place of a sense of
It
like,
is.
I don't want you to
Yeah,
suffer. But if
right.
we push too much, that can cause even more resistance and a negative, reaction from that individual
100%.
that's
And it's
more of a
coming from ego. If you think about it, it's coming from ego,
right,
right?
right.
Yes, it's coming from a good place, but you're ego because you're saying, "I figured it out,
Right.
me." Well, no, I mean, yes, you did, but it's you. It has nothing to
Right.
do with anybody else.
Share what
So,
we have experienced and
right.
share the modalities. Our stories in general are so incredibly powerful too,
Oh,
right? And
yeah,
that's
right.
I love, creating that in the community and hope to foster more of that. I should probably wrap it up given I
Yeah,
see the
okay.
timing. This was wonderful. I would love to speak with you again soon. Please do continue to contribute. When
Yeah.
is the book actually being published? Is there a specific date?
No, I self-published it on Kindle Publishing. It went active, this weekend, so.
Oh, so it's already active. I welcome you to share it if you want to. Share the link
Oh,
in
well, that's very nice. Yeah.
so if anyone wants to take a look and they can grab a copy.
I appreciate that very much.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you, Gary. I look forward to connecting with you again soon.
Thank you so much for the time. I really appreciate it.
Likewise. Thank you.
Okay, bye-bye.